Welcome to our show, Hong Kong Brief. Today, we have some intriguing stories lined up for you. First up, Hong Kong officials are considering a review of rental bed limits to clamp down on the notorious cage homes, aiming to improve living conditions and prevent legal loopholes. This move could bring significant changes to the city's housing landscape. Next, Hong Kong is gearing up to host a high-profile summit in September, promoting itself as a regional hub for family offices. This event is expected to attract wealthy families and investment professionals, further solidifying Hong Kong's status as a financial powerhouse. Lastly, Chief Executive John Lee Ka-chiu celebrates his government's progress halfway through his term, boasting the achievement of over 200 key performance indicators. However, critics argue that more needs to be done to ensure these achievements translate into tangible benefits for the residents. Please stay tuned for the detailed coverage of these stories and more. South China Morning Post. Hong Kong authorities are mulling a review of the bed space apartments ordinance to curb the proliferation of cage homes. Enacted in 1994, this ordinance mandates that owners of flats with 12 or more rental beds secure a license from the Home Affairs Department. However, some landlords exploit a loophole by maintaining just 11 beds per flat to avoid licensing. A task force set up to address subdivided homes discussed revising the ordinance to close these loopholes and improve living conditions. Currently, at least 220,000 residents live in about 110,000 subdivided flats, often in decrepit buildings in areas like Kwun Tong and Sham Shui Pa. These cramped living spaces pose significant hygiene and fire safety risks. The task force, chaired by Deputy Financial Secretary Michael Wong Wailuan, aims to establish minimum standards for these flats, potentially eliminating over 10,000 substandard units. Housing Minister Winnie Ho Wing-in highlighted the need for a minimum size requirement between 75 and 108 square feet. The cross-departmental team includes officials from housing, development, home and youth affairs, environmental issues, and welfare. The review seeks to align the ordinance with current building, fire safety, and sanitation regulations. South China Morning Post. The Hong Kong Academy for Wealth Legacy is set to host a 3-day summit in September, reinforcing the city's ambition to become a hub for family offices. The summit, scheduled from September 12 to 14, aims to attract family office principals and next-generation wealth owners to share insights on business development, investments, and philanthropy. Angel Chia, the Academy's executive director, emphasized the importance of peer group learning over traditional classroom settings to foster talent and capacity building. The summit will feature workshops on charity and impact investment, discussions on family governance, and an introduction to Hong Kong's arts and culture scene. This initiative aligns with Hong Kong's broader strategy to position itself as Asia's premier destination for family offices. The city had over 2,700 single-family offices by the end of last year, according to a Deloitte study. The government's recent efforts include tax incentives and a revamped investment migration program. Financial Secretary Paul Chan Imopa announced the launch of Impact Link, a database connecting donors with charity projects. Chia, with 2 decades of experience in financial services, believes that both Hong Kong and Singapore can thrive as complementary family office hubs. South China Morning Post. Hong Kong Chief Executive John Lee Ka-chiu has completed 2 years of his 5-year term, touting significant progress on his key performance indicators, KPIs. Lee likens his governance to captaining a ship, steering it steadily forward. He claims to have met over 200 KPIs, reflecting a shift towards a result-oriented government culture. Despite some setbacks, such as the scrapped waste charging scheme, Lee interprets these as learning opportunities rather than failures. He emphasizes the need to adapt policies based on public opinion. While Lee's administration has achieved milestones like enacting the Article 23 domestic security regulation, he acknowledges the dual accountability to both the public and the central government. public sentiment remains crucial, as evidenced by rising concerns over mental health and suicide rates. Lee's focus on national security must be balanced with addressing everyday issues that affect residents' well-being. The true measure of success will be whether his administration can alleviate public worries and improve quality of life, ensuring that the metaphorical ship stays on course. Political consultant Alice Wu underscores the importance of public perception and the need for tangible improvements in citizens' lives. South China Morning Post: a growing wave of liquidation suits is sweeping through Hong Kong courts, targeting Chinese developers struggling with debt in a declining market. Last week alone saw four major developers, Kaisa Group Holdings, Shermao Group Holdings, Red Sun Properties, and DFA Properties, facing winding-up hearings. While these companies have been granted temporary reprieves, the threat of liquidation remains imminent if they fail to make progress in debt restructuring. The deteriorating macroeconomic environment is driving offshore creditors to expedite restructuring efforts, leading to a surge in lawsuits as property sales plummet. Industry experts note that current restructuring terms are significantly worse than they were 3 years ago, with recovery rates alarmingly low, often in the single digits. This trend is expected to continue, with a second wave of debt restructurings anticipated from 2025 onwards. The real estate sector has been particularly hard hit, with numerous bond defaults since Beijing's 3 red lines policy was introduced in 2020. Creditors often use liquidation petitions as a strategic move to pressure developers into improving restructuring terms, rather than actually winding up the companies. South China Morning Post: the China Coast Guard, CCG, has become a formidable force in maritime law enforcement, patrolling a vast expanse of coastline and maritime territory, including hotspots like the South China Sea and the East China Sea. Formed in 2013 from 4 maritime administrative agencies, the CCG has rapidly expanded its fleet, now boasting more than 500 surface vessels, making it the largest Coast Guard fleet in the world. The CCG's capabilities far exceed those of many other nations, with a fleet that includes some of the largest and most heavily armed Coast Guard vessels globally. The CCG's missions are multifaceted, ranging from law enforcement and safeguarding critical islands to combating maritime crime and managing fisheries. In recent years, the CCG has stepped up its operations near contested areas, such as the Diaoyu Senkaku Islands and the Taiwanese-controlled island of Quemoy. The CCG's use of gray zone measures, such as intercepting, ramming, and deploying water cannons, has drawn significant attention, particularly in its confrontations with Philippine vessels in the South China Sea. Despite its formidable presence, experts note that the CCG is unlikely to open fire first, as this could trigger significant geopolitical repercussions. South China Morning Post: Hong Kong celebrated the 27th anniversary of its return to Chinese rule with a flag-raising ceremony at Golden Bauhinia Square in Wan Chai, attended by Chief Executive John Lee Ka-chiu and other senior officials. This event marks the beginning of Lee's 3rd year in office, during which he has pledged to focus on economic development and improving residents' livelihoods. The celebrations included free admission to museums and discounts at thousands of restaurants and retailers, drawing both Hong Kongers and tourists. The day's events were part of a broader effort to boost civic pride and community engagement. As Hong Kong reflects on its past 27 years under Chinese rule, the government continues to navigate the complexities of its unique status and the challenges of integrating with mainland China while addressing local concerns. South China Morning Post: Rolf Strauch, chief economist at the European Stability Mechanism, ESM, highlights climate change, demographics, and geoeconomic fragmentation as the 3 major trends impacting the global economy. Strauch emphasizes that the financial sector can either mitigate or amplify the economic consequences of climate change, depending on how financial flows are managed. He distinguishes between transition risks, which involve changes in policies towards a sustainable economy, and physical risks, which pertain to the direct destruction caused by climate events. Europe is a leader in developing regulations and supervision to address these risks, but emerging markets are more vulnerable due to their reliance on sectors like agriculture and tourism. Strauch also discusses the importance of international cooperation, particularly with institutions like the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the Financial Stability Board, to build a robust financial system capable of withstanding climate-related shocks. He notes that while Europe has shown resilience in the face of recent financial crises, deeper integration of the EU single market could further enhance financial stability and growth. South China Morning Post: China's leaders are gearing up for a pivotal meeting to discuss a new growth model for the world's second-largest economy. Despite state media's efforts to build up expectations around high-quality development and high-level opening up, investor sentiment remains largely pessimistic. Premier Li Chong's recent assurances in Australia about major measures to deepen reforms and improve the investment environment have not convinced many. Foreign direct investment has fallen significantly, and the stock markets in mainland China and Hong Kong have reacted negatively to recent forums and announcements. To restore investor confidence, the article suggests that China should leverage the unique strengths and international influence of Hong Kong's business community. Historically, Hong Kong businessmen were instrumental in China's initial economic reforms, bringing in not just capital but also expertise and international credibility. Re-engaging these business leaders could help China regain its appeal to global investors. Nikkei Asia: the strong US dollar and high interest rates have significantly impacted Asian financial markets in 2024, affecting everything from regional currencies to stock returns. For dollar investors, weak Asian currencies have eroded gains in domestic shares. Japan's stock market has seen significant local currency gains, but these have been diminished for dollar investors due to the weak yen. In Southeast Asia, countries like Thailand and Indonesia have experienced significant foreign investor sell-offs, leading to substantial losses in local and dollar terms. Taiwan's tech-heavy market has performed well, driven by global demand for semiconductors, while India's stock market has remained stable, buoyed by local investors and a relatively stable rupee. Malaysia stands out for delivering solid returns in both local and dollar terms, benefiting from supply chain diversification away from China. Analysts predict that once the U.S. Federal Reserve starts cutting interest rates, sentiment towards Asian markets will improve, potentially leading to a more positive outlook for the region. SCMP opinion. Today marks 27 years since China resumed sovereignty over Hong Kong, a milestone in the city's rich history. Over the past 5 years, the city has undergone significant political reforms and the enactment of national security laws, transforming it from a state of chaos to governance, and now, as President Xi Jinping claims, from governance to prosperity. Hong Kong is climbing back up global rankings in competitiveness and livability, but challenges remain. The upcoming third-party plenum is set to influence the country's economic direction for the next decade, and its impact on Hong Kong is yet to be seen. Meanwhile, the city's integration with mainland China continues, exemplified by the opening of the Shenzhen-Zhongshan link. Local businesses are optimistic, with significant investments like the $1 billion renovation of landmark properties. Financial Secretary Paul Chan-Imopa is hopeful about the city's return to the top of global IPO tables. Chief Executive John Lee Ka-chiu, nearing the halfway mark of his term, faces the challenge of delivering economic recovery amidst geopolitical uncertainties and sluggish economic revival in China. Yahoo US. Warren Buffett's 1995 trip to China with Bill Gates was a culinary challenge for the fast food-loving investor. Known for his diet of McDonald's, Dairy Queen, and Cherry Coke, Buffett was uncomfortable with local cuisine. To ensure he wouldn't starve, Gates and his family arranged for his favorite foods, burgers, fries, and soda to be served throughout the trip. Author Alice Schroeder recounts in her biography, The Snowball, Warren Buffett and the Business of Life, how Buffett endured a grand Sichuanese dinner in Beijing by being served course after course of French fries. During their tour, Buffett opted for fast food at every opportunity, even finding cherry Coke at the Great Wall, while others enjoyed champagne. The trip included visits to a Coca-Cola plant, Chairman Mao's personal train, and the Terracotta Army. By the time they reached Hong Kong, Buffett was eager to find a McDonald's, highlighting his preference for familiar comforts over local delicacies. Telegraph. William Gibson's Neuromancer, published 40 years ago, is hailed as one of the most prophetic sci-fi novels, anticipating a future dominated by cyberspace and virtual reality. Gibson's influence is profound. He coined the term cyberspace and popularized the cyberpunk genre. The novel's opening line, "The sky above the port was the color of television, tuned to a dead channel," sets the tone for a world where technology and corruption intertwine. The protagonist, Case, navigates a dystopian landscape filled with hacking, drugs, and black markets. Many of Gibson's predictions, like the Internet's omnipresence and corporate dominance, have come true. His vision of adaptive camouflage, lab-grown meat, and AI resonates with today's technological advancements. Yet, some aspects, like the Boston-Atlanta metropolitan axis, remain speculative. Gibson's work is a blend of noir and sci-fi, capturing timeless truths about human nature and the moral dilemmas posed by technological progress. As we step into the age of AI, his cautionary tales remind us of the familiar dangers and wonders that lie ahead. South China Morning Post. If you are enchanted by nature, beauty, food, and wellness, Flamingo Estate in Los Angeles is the lifestyle brand you need to know about. Launched during the pandemic, it has quickly become a favorite among celebrities like Oprah, LeBron James, and Meghan Markle. The brainchild of Richard Christensen, Flamingo Estate is more than just a brand, it's a revival of a forgotten suburban gem. Christensen, a former successful advertising executive, transformed a dilapidated 3-hectare estate into a botanical haven. His journey began with selling veggie boxes during the pandemic and evolved into a botanical wellness brand offering over 150 products. Collaborations with top farmers and celebrities have propelled Flamingo Estate to an annual revenue of $20 million. Christensen's vision is to reconnect people with nature, believing that Mother Nature is the last great luxury house. Nikkei Asia. Hong Kong's transformation since the 1997 handover from Britain to China has been profound, with significant erosion of freedoms following Beijing's imposition of the national security law. Former journalist and pro-democracy lawmaker Emily Lau Weihing reflects on the drastic changes, noting the imprisonment of many activists and the stifling of free expression. The national security law, coupled with Article 23 legislation, has clamped down on secession, subversion, and collusion with foreign forces. The once vibrant and open city now sees its freedoms curtailed, with many pro-democracy activists either imprisoned or in exile. Lau recalls challenging Margaret Thatcher in 1984 over the moral implications of the Sino-British Joint Declaration, a sentiment she believes resonates today. She urges Beijing to ease its grip on Hong Kong, arguing that the harsh measures are detrimental to both the city's economy and the happiness of its people. The Sydney Morning Herald. Julian Assange's return to Australia after 14 years is a triumph for his family and the country, but it highlights the ongoing plight of journalists worldwide. The Committee to Protect Journalists reports a record number of imprisoned journalists, particularly in the Asia-Pacific region, where countries like China, North Korea, and Myanmar rank among the most dangerous for media personnel. Jimmy Lai, a prominent pro-democracy activist and media owner in Hong Kong, stands as a symbol of this repression. Imprisoned for over 3 years, Lai faces life under China's national security law. His case, along with others like Australian journalist Cheng Lei and Nobel laureate Maria Ressa, underscores the increasing criminalization of journalism. Australia, a longtime advocate for human rights, must continue to champion free speech and press freedom in the region, using its influence to call for the release of activists like Jimmy Lai. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.